Hello, my name is Yoshi Bauer. Welcome to the My Special Needs Connection webinar and podcast series. As a parent of children with special needs and as a professional advocate, I understand the challenge of connecting parents and professionals with the information that they need to serve children and adults with special needs. At My Special Needs Connection, we empower parents and professionals through valuable instruction and insights of experts in the special needs community. We're excited to come alongside you to provide you with information that you need. Let's grow through the exchange of knowledge and the hope of success. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter and YouTube channel for new releases. Please enjoy our webinars and podcasts.
My name is Susan Traugh, and I am the author of Transition to Life and Daily Living Skills. I have been writing curriculum for some 30 years, and specifically I've been writing curriculum for kids with special needs for 20. I have a BA in Liberal Studies and a master's degree in education, specializing in curriculum development. I'm a former teacher and was a professor of teacher studies at university level. But mostly, I'm the mom of 3 kids with disabilities. My son is traumatically brain injured and suffered learning disabilities, anxiety, and some other physical disabilities after a fall. My oldest daughter is on the spectrum and spent most of her young life in and out of the hospital with myriad physical problems. And my youngest was a GATE student, singer, dancer, class leader, until at 13, severe bipolar disorder overtook her and pulled the rug out on her. Because of that, I quit my job and stayed home to help my kids reach their highest potential. To do that, I volunteered in their classrooms, in each classroom every year, and was blessed to meet some of the most incredible special ed teachers around, and learned how their students learn and learned how to write curriculum for them, which I did throughout my kids' school careers. But when my son went to high school and it was time to start learning transition, his teacher came to me because she couldn't find any programs that worked for students with mild to moderate disabilities. There was a lot of information out there for the moderate to severe group, but not mild mods. So she asked me to write it, and a curriculum was born. Transition to Life was the first book we wrote. It is made especially for kids who just need a little direct information and are planning to go either to college or straight into the workplace. But as we started doing more and more of it, teachers started asking for more. Today, my 3 kids are all grown. My one is independent and wildly successful, living on his own. My second child is volunteering with her dad at work and will probably always live at home with us. And the jury's still out on the third. So, but as they progressed, I saw a need for more and more titles, more and more skills. Like so many parents of kids with special needs, I was so busy working on academic skills and making sure that they could graduate from high school that a lot of those everyday adult living skills kind of fell by the wayside. He had an algebra test. He had to pass it tomorrow. It would be too hard to do that and work on a budget too. So I recognized as we kept working that there needed to be a way to incorporate this into the classroom, especially for our kids with special needs. As a parent of kids with special needs, my hope for my children is that they can live as independently as possible and reach their highest potential. But that may not be very easy. The National Longitudinal Transition Study is a 10-year study written by the Department of Education and distributed by the Institute of Educational Sciences. It followed a group of special ed students for 10 years who had been out of school, had just left school, or had been out up to 6 years, to see how they fared when they got out into the real world. And these next charts will show you some of the results of that study. When we look at paid employment for students from special ed versus students from the general population, it turns out that they both fare pretty well, with about 70% of both groups being employed at the time of these interviews. But when you look at the individual disabilities, then the numbers are different. When it comes to learning disabled kids, 78% of them are employed, which is wonderful. But when we look at autism, we're only looking at 45.2%, visual impairments, only 40.3%. This report says mental retardation. The report's a few years old, so it doesn't use the newer term of developmental disabilities. But unfortunately, employment levels are only about 46% for that group. But looking further, our earnings differences are not what you would hope they would be. Students coming from the general population earn about $13.20 an hour. Students from special ed only earn about $9.40 an hour. Going further and looking at their independence in living and living situations, we have further discrepancies. For this study, independent is defined as living alone with a spouse or a partner or with a roommate. And living semi-independently is defined as living in a college dorm or in military housing or in a group home. Different disabilities, again, will yield different numbers, but overall, 36% of kids with special needs live independently, 3% live semi-independently, and that contrasts with general ed kids, where 44% of them live independently. Friendships are another issue, especially with some of our kids on the spectrum. And this study also looked at how often students interacted with friends outside of work or school. And unfortunately, you'll see in the red and orange slices of this pie that 20% never interacted with anyone. The good news is 80% saw a friend outside of work or school at least once a week or more. Finally, interaction with the criminal justice system. This is one of the graphs that scares me as the mother of both a child with autism and a child with emotional disabilities, because it says that youth with learning disabilities, cognitive, behavioral, or emotional disabilities enter the correctional system at rates of 4 to 5 times the general population. You can read the bar here, and it shows nearly 47% of students with any of those disabilities were stopped by the police for something other than a traffic ticket in the last year. IDEA, or the Individuals with Disability in Education Act, seeks to improve these statistics by offering transition services to students by their 16th birthday. Specifically, the transition planning and services that are required say that the areas that must be addressed are instruction, employment, community experiences, daily living skills, and functional vocational evaluations. The law goes on to say that improved academic and functional achievements that will offer youth choices in adult life must be provided. These choices include continued education, employment, and the ability to assume an adult role in life. Indicator 13 is another part of the law that goes even further and says that ITP goals, or individual transition plan goals, must be included in an IEP by a child's 16th birthday. They translate those transition goals to meet these criteria. They need to be appropriate for post-secondary goals that address education and training, employment, independent living skills. They need to be age appropriate. And the services need to be written into the IEP that I'm going to give you the services you need in order to acquire this goal. The Secretary's Commission on Achieving Necessary Skills lists an additional 15 skills that our students need in order to be successful in the workplace. This is based on research on what employers think are the skills that would make an employee successful. They include things like appropriate behavior, a good attitude, goal-setting ability, and motivation. As you can see, there are 15 of them. They are skills that are not taught in school. And as a parent of children with disability, my problem has always been how to have time to take care of these very, very important skills, but still reach the academics for my child. Because at least my kids with their disabilities needed explicit instructions in each of these. If you have kids who are in the general population, very often they just pick up this stuff mostly by osmosis. They look at their peers, they see what's expected of them, and they can kind of slide into that role. Our kids need more direct instruction on that, and this tells you what they need the instruction on. As my son needed more skills as he started to work toward graduation, when my daughter, who is on the spectrum, came up towards graduation, there were even more issues with what skills she needed to acquire. Because she was on the spectrum, she needed to know how to be likable, how to make a conversation, what everyday manners looked like, and how to behave with her peers, how to behave in the workplace. So more titles started coming to the Daily Living Skills series. Transition to Life and Daily Living Skills address the skills highlighted in the IES report. They address hard skills, like how to do an interview or how to write a resume. But they also address the soft skills, like knowing what's expected in the workplace and knowing how to behave. But they also provide adult living skills such as creating a budget, paying bills, grocery shopping, meal planning, cleaning and maintaining a home. Also soft skills like making and keeping friends, controlling your emotions, and interacting with authorities. You have the right as a parent to advocate for your child's transition education. It can be difficult, though, without a plan. The Parent Priority Inventory that I'm showing you here is available free on my site, and will help you to start to create a plan that's individualized to your child and your child's transition needs. We want our children to live as independently as possible, no matter what that looks like. We want that because we want our kids to have a feeling of accomplishment, to know that they're living up to their potential. But also, the more independent they get, the more it opens up possibilities for living situations, for working situations, for friendships. But we need to start wherever our child is. Does your child need to master personal hygiene? Or is cleaning house, doing the laundry, and washing dishes more where you need to start? Or maybe social skills are a challenge. Do they need to get a job and go to college? What about making decisions, overcoming failure, practicing patience, motivating themselves, or advocating for themselves? Look at this list. Consider your child. Cross off any unneeded skills. Then put a check by skills that your child has already accomplished. Finally, rank what's left by priorities, with 1 being the one that is most important to you, and then continuing the numbering until you've finished everything else on this list. Look at the back of the list. In each square are titles. These come from my books, but they are not to be considered as a sales pitch. This is a list of skills that your child needs to address in each one of these major categories. You can teach any of them. I'm not fooling myself. This is not rocket science. And for the most part, any parent watching this webinar could teach any one of these skills if they had the time and if they had the energy to put it all together. But a plan is good. And knowing how you're going to go from step 1 to step 2 and what skills you want to fill into that space will help you know where you're going and not end up at the end of the road with big gaps in what your child knows. There are hundreds of videos online and YouTube and in other places and programs for free online, things that you can download. You can put together a program like this for yourself, just using this plan in order to know how you were going to lay it out. But if you decide that you want to use my curriculum, the Doing the Laundry book is free online. You can download it and see if it's something that works for your child. So are a dozen videos and mini lessons on my site. I have lessons on making beds, doing laundry, cleaning the toilet, making meals. There's also mini lessons on prioritizing, asking for a date, how to celebrate holidays. Whatever you choose, keep it on the mark. It should meet federal guidelines. The guidelines are really clear, and the federal guidelines to transitions has standards in 5 different categories that your students need to meet in order to successfully transition into adulthood. You'll see them here in the middle of this page, marked as NS and then with the numbers behind them. You'll look for another program or this program that meets those standards so that you know you're checking off the list. Let the program be accessible. Your students are working really hard to accomplish difficult reading levels in all of their academic skills. This program shouldn't be another difficult subject for them. To that end, Daily Living Skills is written on a 3rd, 4th grade level so that it's very accessible, very easy for students to look at. As demonstrated on this page, if there's any vocabulary for instance, here is deductible. It's defined and then used in a sentence so that students understand what that word means and how it's used. It also needs to be appropriate. If the pages are too print rich, it turns students off and they just become frustrated and intimidated. If it's too juvenile or too baby, it's insulting and they don't want to pick it up. Which leads me to the next key is it should be respectful. Even though our students' reading and processing may be slow, developmentally they're still young adults and they want to be treated as young adults, and the tone of whatever program you choose should respect that maturity. Finally, it needs to be clear. Get to the point. Go in, teach the information, get out. Make sure it's accurate, make sure it's short and sweet. Finding a program with these qualities will provide a good foundation for your students and make sure that they have the qualities they need in a program. You are the first teacher and the best advocate for your child. You know what their potential is. You know what they can do. You know their interests, their hopes, their desires. And you, probably more than anybody else, knows how to get from here to there with your child. You can get the transition guide free online or by mail with this address when you pick up the parent packet that goes with this webinar. All of these resources will be listed there for you and addresses so that you can get all of this information easily. The same is true for the other resources, the SCANS report, the IES report that I referred to, and the parent packet. They're all free online, and if you go to my website, it includes links for everything. Also online for free is Doing Laundry, the free videos, the mini lessons, all for your use. Thank you. I appreciate you watching this video and staying with us. If you have any questions, please email me. That email is kitchecation@cox.net, and it is also on the parent packet. Thank you.